Off. Okay. Good morning, everybody. As you can see already, we are from so many countries from all around Europe, from Sweden to Italy, from Ukraine and Turkey to Luxembourg, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Greece, Cyprus, Poland, Czech Republic, Bulgaria. So there are many, many countries. It is with great pleasure to start this new AUTOBEST Summit session organized by the AUTOBEST European Independent Jury. This time we will have for the second time practically a new Mazda Motor Europe session. But this time we choose carefully the subjects, and we have the privilege today to have two of the senior executives of Mazda Motor Europe. And I will start introducing Wojciech Halarewicz, Vice President, Communication and Public Affairs for Mazda Motor Europe. Hello, Wojciech.
Good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure and honor to be with you today.
And we are also very happy to have Christian Schulze, the Director for Research and Operation at the Mazda European R&D Center. Hello, Christian.
Good morning. Also, I'm pretty excited and happy to be in this nice round. Good morning.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this time we announced a very interesting topic. We are actually live on AUTOBEST page on Facebook, followed by some thousands of people, as I can see, and we are all curious to go in exploring the situation we have of today in some of the hot topics. We will discuss about the Green Deal and how this will affect the car industry. We will discuss about e-fuels, because it looks like that's a kind of resource we tend to forget these days. And in this context, of course, we will talk about the future mobility solutions, obviously including electrification. And on top of all this, we will learn about Mazda Motor Europe perspective on everything. Accordingly to this agenda, allow me to invite first Wojciech and then Christian to tell us in more details about the Green Deal. What does it really mean for us in the car industry?
Thank you, Dan, and again, thank you very much for invitation and your interest in listening to our vision about this important topic that very directly influences, our business circumstances and our business conditions here in Europe, especially here in Europe, but not only. Yeah, so maybe some initial words from my side about Green Deal. So just probably a lot of our audience and clearly the journalists that are with us today, know about it. But let us start to put some points related to Green Deal. So first of all, Green Deal has been presented as growth strategy. And frankly speaking, we agree with that, okay? Because we think that the green growth strategy, it means that there is a clear intention to transform European Union and European economy to become very competitive and fair. And this fairness, I think, is quite important word. The ultimate goal for Europe is to become the first climate neutral economy by 2050. This was and is very important topic for European Commission and all European institutions. And as proof of that, European deal was announced as a part of the first 100 days commitments. And frankly, there are quite a lot of actions associated. We have counted that there are 50 action points, very much cross-sectorial, but also very much interlinked. And clearly, our arena of business is at the center. Okay, so mobility, energy, agriculture, and trade are part of the Green Deal. Probably we would spend a lot of time, okay, to talk about all functions or all elements of the Green Deal, but we clearly have done some work of prioritization of the items related to Green Deal that directly influence our business. And clearly, the point number one of the Green Deal is the revision of the regulation on CO2 standards for cars and vans. So this regulation practically is focused on the EU-wide emissions reduction targets and provides, let me say, the incentives for zero and low emission vehicles. We'll spend some time today to talk about that. And clearly, the objective is to become the climate neutral for 2050. And the European Commission plans to review this regulation at the end of June. And I think that you are all aware about the latest developments, okay? Because our co-legislators, so it means the European Parliament and the Council of the EU, have reached very recently the provisional agreement on the European climate law, where they confirmed the reduction of the greenhouse emissions by 2030 with the important amount of 55% versus 90 levels. And clearly, the CO2 related to the cars and vans will be part of this announcement, and we expect they called it this project that will be announced in June. They call it Fit for 55 package. So a lot of elements are, let me say, taking place there. So clearly, as you understood, we are quite careful about what will be there, and clearly it's our number one priority. But it's not the only priority of the Green Deal. Second one is the review of the Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Directive. That the current directive is already from 2014, and this already sets out minimum requirements for the member states to build up alternative fuels infrastructures, such as the charging points for EVs, etc. And this will be clearly reviewed, and this is also high priority for us. The next point is the strategy for sustainable and smart mobility. This is non-legislative strategy that will propose solutions to modernize transport and achieve 90% emissions reduction by 2050. So the Commission for this aspect is working on a couple of pillars, on 3 pillars exactly. So immediate emission reduction. Second one is developing sustainable alternative fuels for all transport modes. And the next one is deploying infrastructure. So quite an important topic. The next one, well known for automotive people, is everything related to Euro 7. A lot of developments, and clearly a Euro 7 will be more stringent air pollutant emission standards. Will be focused on that. A lot of elements are being taken in consideration. That the first proposal was very, very tough. Now looks like that there are still discussions around it, but clearly it will definitely have an impact on our developments. Okay, and maybe lower priority for us, but important point of the Green Deal is the revision of the Energy Taxation Directive, sustainability requirements for batteries, end-of-life vehicle directive, and mandatory requirements for recycled plastic contents. So as you can see, there are a lot of elements of the Green Deal that will be or legislative, binded, or not legislative, but will clearly will be very fundamental for the development of automotive technology and clear directions we'll have to take. So this is very short about my perspective on Green Deal, and clearly this also defines Mazda's policy of the public affairs. Okay, so we are very present, especially in priority 1 and 2 aspect I mentioned. I hope then it answers you know, in generally the question.
Starting point. Christian, I will invite you now to go in more in details, in more perspectives you want to offer to us.
Yes, at least I think if we start talking about it, it's not really a green deal. We should consider it more as a sustainable deal, because that is what we want. It is not about to introduce so-called green technologies. It is about to be sustainable in our world. And that's why there are also activities in which describe how do we live in the future with all our products, how do we care that they are used the best way and not used and thrown away and so forth. So very clearly the Green Deal is an acceleration plan. Acceleration plan to speed up the decarbonization of our industry, of our society, of our culture. This is important in order to secure our climate. And we have understood that basically, of course, we see this big wave of legislations coming to us now, the revisions of all these ideas, but they give us a great possibility. As you know, all the legislations more or less existed before. They have been developed in due time, one after the other, but not in a completely coordinated way. And that's why we as Mazda are now very actively talking with the different stakeholders and with the different plans for revisions of the regulations, so that we can develop this set of regulations that is coordinated in its activity. As Wojciech clearly explained, on the one hand is, for example, the revision of the CO2 standards. And on the other hand, we are talking about alternative fuel infrastructure. So these kind of legislations, of course, must be coordinated to get the best out of it. We as Mazda, clearly we understand that mobility is one of the basic needs in our culture, similar like sleeping, protection, shelter, and food. Mobility belongs to our culture, mobility belongs to our economy. We have to ensure that mobility is achievable and usable for everybody in the way he wants. We do not want to limit this. And we see, of course, that already many pathways have been started to reduce CO2 emissions. Electrification is one way, and it's the one which is maybe most discussed at this point in time. But we are at Mazda a little bit afraid that electrification is not enough, simply speaking. We know cars, good cars like Mazda cars, have a very long lifetime. And so from now until 2050, we believe there will be not so many generations of new cars with radical new technologies that we can achieve that the whole fleet of cars has become completely electric. Because this is a matter of also infrastructure, that is a matter of cost and investment. And we understand that electric cars are very good for specific mobility aspects. For example, the mobility in the city, the short distance mobility. But for other forms of mobility, like mobility on long distances or with bigger and heavier cars, there we should look also in other scenarios and other opportunities. And we are a little bit afraid that when we simply focus on the exchange of the fleet towards electric cars, more and more the existing car fleet will be devaluated. The cars which you and I are driving, they will become less valuable, similar as we saw it beforehand in the diesel crisis. So what we believe is it is necessary to look for solutions that can also help to clean up the existing car park. And at this point in time, there's only one technology that can achieve this. and this is the synthetic new fuels, the e-fuels, and certain biofuels, advanced biofuels, which are made in a way that they are completely identical to the fuels we have today. Because the current engine is not the problem, neither the diesel engine nor the gasoline engine. It is the fuel that is the problem, which we put in our engines today. The fossil fuels emit fossil CO2, and by this raise the CO2 value in our atmosphere. With synthetic fuels, we have the chance to emit CO2 into the air, which we have formerly taken out of our climate to produce this fuel. So this is a kind of closed loop. We do not raise the CO2 level in the atmosphere. So that is one of the reasons why we believe it is very essential to have multiple approaches. Mazda is following the electrification way, yes, but we are also looking into other opportunities to make the whole decarbonization of transport very safe and feasible activity, because it is a titan's work, as I said in the beginning.
It's already a good start, Christian. Thank you. Before we go in more details about these e-fuels, because that's clearly a very interesting path we all want to go and understand. I will come back to what Wojciech said. He said, and I'm quoting, the Fit for 55 package. Looks like we are going all to the gyms. Can you, Wojciech, tell us a bit more about this gym project of the European Commission, Fit for 55?
It's very hard to deep dive into this package, because it has not been published. Okay, so what we know is that it will be released at the end of June, and it will include all the regulations related to the emission of the CO2s. And we have, and we will have also in the next days, quite a lot of consultations. So Christian, myself, and the team with member of European Parliament. We are also meeting some, for example, some people from the different DGs in European Commission, because for us the very important thing is that we agree, and we really are, and literally we are really okay to strengthen the emission standards. Okay, so this 55% of reduction is something we agree, but there is one aspect that we always try to reinforce in our discussions. It has to have fundamental technological neutrality, and this is for us the key point. Okay, so if you look today at today's situation, and let's say that we just change the target, so from 37.5, for cars, we just move it to 55%, and nothing changes. It's clear that it's not going to be technologically neutral, because without pure electrification, those targets wouldn't be achievable. Because today, just please allow me to give you a very simple example. You go in Germany and you have the choice what you put to your tank. You have the normal gasoline, or you have the gasoline with some biofuel, E10. Yeah. What is the incentive today, okay, that you use more biofuels? Nothing. Yeah, because it's not counted as the lower emission. So technological neutrality for us is the key, and we hope, let me say that in June we will see something that will allow some mechanisms to become technologically neutral, and we think that the fuel or e-fuel can become the important component of this regulation. You are probably aware also about the big fundamental questions, right? Because today's regulations are very sectorial. Okay, so we know what we have to do as automotive. If we talk about fuels, there are much more actors involved in this chain, and some representatives of Commission had a little bit of doubt. So how, even when we talked about well-to-wheel, okay, so they say, yeah, but well-to-wheel involves too many actors and we want to keep you accountable for the emissions. And they are right. But there is a very nice study of frontier economics that we are quite sympathetic about, okay, that talks about potential mechanisms of trading of the CO2s from, let me say, the different actors in the value chain of that. So we think that there is possibility to introduce as a part of the Fit for 55 packages of the new CO2 regulation some mechanisms that will really clearly decrease the greenhouse gas emissions, so the CO2 emissions, and will make technological neutrality. So let me restate one important thing. Is Mazda proceeding towards electrification? Yes. Is electrification to become one and only way we want to proceed as Mazda in terms of the technology? No. Are we going to have BEVs? Yes. Are we going to have plug-in hybrids? Yes. Are we going to use our rotary engine that will allow us also to do something that nobody has on the market? Yes. Are we going to develop also modern diesel engines? Yes. Do we believe that it can be fueled with the clean, let me say, bio e-fuels? Yes, we believe in this. This is what we mean by multi-solution, and this is what we want to clearly state in every single opportunity when we meet with the leaders of the European institutions. Technological neutrality and the real save of the emissions for our planet. Christian, please feel free to complement my speech.
Yeah, I think this is really the key point, that we need technological neutrality and the acknowledgement, the understanding that there are many contributors to CO2. And there is no logical reason why we should not count specific solutions as positively contributing. And as Wojciech said, we are not denying the electrification route. This was already in the past, many years ago, when the first hybrid vehicles came up, the understanding that the electric motor can raise the system efficiency of the vehicle. But it is not the only solution, and we are very strong in that. And we hope that it will be recognized. You know, we have to change our total energy industry. That is an understanding which has been also fundamentally explained in the hydrogen strategy, which the EU has developed. In future, we must move away from the fossil energy sources towards renewable energy sources based on sun and wind and hydropower. And we can only store it in the form of hydrogen or chemicals that are based on hydrogen. To transport hydrogen is something which is pretty difficult. It is the lightest element which we have in our universe. But if you convert it, for example, into a liquid fuel, you increase the power and energy density by a huge factor so that you can easily transport it. Why is this important? We have a limited amount of electricity in our networks in Europe. We cannot import easily, for example, electric current from Africa, where we can easily produce based on sunshine, solar electricity. So, but how can we make this energy usable for us? How can we make the wind which blows in Alaska usable for us, or in South America? How can we use the hydrogen power, the hydropower in all parts of the world usable? If we convert this electricity in a form of energy that can be used in multiple ways. So there are many proposals, and one of them is e-fuels. And they can secure that in future we can have cars that have a combustion engine and an electrification part, but in whatever mode they are running, they will be CO2 neutral.
Christian, before we go to the Q&A session, so my dear colleagues, please raise your hands. But before that, before they prepare, allow me 2-3 small points to be clarified. You mentioned the technological neutral and you mentioned e-fuel. So what is the source, the raw material for these e-fuels, and why this is carbon neutral?
Yeah. The basic source for e-fuels is, for example, green hydrogen. Hydrogen that is made by dissociating water with using renewable electricity into oxygen and hydrogen. And with this hydrogen, we can, through specific processes that are well known, but which are not established on large plant scale, but on laboratory scale at this point in time, they can be produced into fuels that are chemically identical or even better. They are cleaner because they don't contain any fossil residues, not too many aromats and so forth. They can be converted into very clean fuels that are either kerosene for the airplane, there can be diesel, and they can be gasoline. And if you burn them, they even burn cleaner than the fossil fossil fuels we have at this point in time. So with these e-fuels, we can not only save the CO2, but also the raw emissions will be dramatically better in terms, for example, of particulates and others. And this gives us the opportunity to easily fulfill future emission standards with these e-fuels as well.
Christian, there is a big discussion, as you know, food versus fuel. Do you have a different opinion on this dramatic question by the end of the day, that people need food, not necessarily fuel, or the other way around, we need fuel and of course we need food? What is the perspective of Mazda on that?
Very clear. This is two separate things. E-fuels has nothing to do with food or food crops. E-fuels are made based on a synthetic hydrogen. So there are other ways where we can use biosources in a responsible way. This could be, for example, waste from wood residues, waste from household solid waste, or waste from biological sources, for example, from producing foods. But I talk about wastes. I'm not talking about the soybeans. I'm not talking about maize. I'm not talking about potatoes, which we use for fuel making. I'm talking about wastes. So the mistakes we have made with the very first generation of biofuels, I think nobody will repeat them anymore. We have understood that there is enough energy content out there, which is either from renewable sources like wind power or solar power, hydropower, or from biological sources. We know companies, for example, in Finland, where we know there's a very big production of wood for the whole Europe, and they have huge amounts of wood residues that cannot be used. If we allow to decompose these residues in the free nature, the CO2 will evaporate without any use. So why not using these biological sources to create clean fuels that do not harm our climate?
Yeah, the good news is that what Christian is talking about is not only theory. We know people and we know some companies, and I'm not going to nominate the name because we're not authorized to do it, but there are serious companies and serious names from the fuel business that are considering serious prototyping of those solutions that Christian is mentioning as a part of development of this roadmap. So it's happening.
Wojciech, you mentioned also continuing the development of diesel technology. That sounds a bit strange in the today electromobility environment. Can you be more in details, more specific about this?
Yeah, so it's always nice. And I think, then the journalists are asking you for your future product and development. It's very natural, and we are trying to have the nice words, not to tell you too much. Yeah, but I would say, let me tell you like that. It's strange, but when we started, when we introduced to the market our MX-5 years ago, it also looked strange that at the moment where the British industry decided to stop production, we have launched our most successful, car line, brand icon, okay, like MX-5 that we are continuing to sell today. Or when somebody on the market told that rotary engine doesn't have future, we were able to make it work, and also we were able to take it to Le Mans and win the Le Mans. It's very popular now to make a lot of statements, and when you open whatever newspaper, magazines, there are a lot of statements that this car make is going to electrify 100% of the cars by 2025, this one until 2027, another one by 2030. And Mazda is saying, we will have electrification, but yes, we are working on diesel. And we are working on our unique solution for the diesel engine. We believe it has the future. It will be very soon on the market. But of course, we are not also to become the donkey shots. Okay, if the regulations in the very future will kill internal combustion engines, of course we will adapt. But we think that there is no rationales today, especially in the context of what we are discussing today, that there are a lot of interest talking from the European institutions that are interested in talking about e-fuels, biofuels, clean fuels. We believe that diesel can have the future and can be very, very, very clean. But in our cycle plan, yes, there is a future for new model, modern and clean diesel. We are working on that.
Do you think that will be an Euro 7 standard for diesel?
Oh yeah, this the Euro 7 will be the norm for all. Let me say the emissions. Okay, so that definitely yes. Yeah.
Good. We started to have already questions from all around Europe. We'll start with Oleg from Ukraine. Oleg?
Yeah, this is a question concerning the e-fuel, of course, because this is a really hot topic nowadays. Tell me, how complicated it is to retune, from engineering point of view, the current engine line to use the e-fuel, both petrol engines and the diesel engines. And as I understood, it's fuel is much cleaner when it comes to exhaust. And does it mean that after probably using the e-fuel in the nearest future, we can step back in terms of the technology of our internal combustion engines to the 20 years ago, where they were not loaded by those kind of things like catalytic converters and so on, which made our engines so asthmatic as we have today? Thank you.
Okay, Wojciech, Christian?
Sorry, I didn't get the very first part. My computer collapsed a little bit, but I understood that you want to say, if we use e-fuels, why should we further continue development of engines? Is it the essence of what you're saying?
No, how complicated it is to retune from engineering point of view for using the e-fuels, the current lineup, both petrol and diesel engines? Is it as easy as to apply the SNG or CNG gas?
So okay.
Or not? Or even easier, more complicated?
The e-fuels that we are developing are fuels that have so-called drop-in quality, means they have the chemical identical composition than the conventional fuels which we are using now on a fossil basis. When you look back, when we introduced ethanol into our gasoline or biodiesel into our diesel, they did not meet fully the fuel standard in terms of all the chemical and physical properties. And that's why we had to limit their use inside of the fossil fuel, not to endanger the lifetime or the performance of our engines. With these e-fuels, we have some twins. The one is the clean and green, and the other one is the fossil twin. And that's why we think it's a very clever method if we use such an identical formulation, because we can mix it at the fuel station, and we can, with the increasing production of e-fuels, replace the fossil part by the green part. The result for the customer will be that his car becomes gradually cleaner in emissions and maybe even has positive impact on the performance and lifetime, because smoke and particles will be less, definitely. And this helps also to maintain the value for the customer. So we can ensure that the vehicles which use e-fuels will have no issues with this. And we can easily use the identical infrastructure. We don't need to build up a new infrastructure in our transport sector like we now do with the electrification. So it makes it relatively easy to apply these fuels once we have decided to go and invest in large-scale production facilities.
Good. Now let's go to Austria, to Gerhard Kunchik, which is our vice president of the jury. Gerhard?
Yeah, good morning again, everyone. I fully understand your approach to e-fuels and new ways of reducing CO2 emissions. But on the other hand, I don't hear anything on this issue, on this topic from the European Parliament or from the European Commission. So in many countries, Norway, Britain, France, and so on, the prohibition of combustion engines looms whenever it will be, 2040, 2035, 2030, whatever. So my question is, what use or what benefit do we have from the development of e-fuels if the European regulators only accept electrification, electrified mobility, and no combustion engines anymore are allowed to sell?
Thank you very much, Gerhard, for a very legitimate question, and I think that the answer is very direct. If let me say, regulations will go into direction of something that is opposite to technological neutrality, so it will be only focused on electrification, of course, let me say, the perspective you described can happen. Then there is no mean, okay, to go into this direction for cars, yeah. But I will come back to this a little bit later. We believe that there are signs and symptoms of the huge interest from European Commission institutions, and we have those discussions directly and also through eFuel Alliance, that we are the first OEM that we joined eFuel Alliance, and we had very good and high quality discussions related to the subject of e-fuels. So let me say, I'm really looking for and waiting for the June, if there will be some first elements that will include, let me say, the element of the e-fuels into the legislation. But let me a little bit be provocative, because for the cars, we can still, think about, the full electrification with the growth of infrastructure, the charging points, and assuming that there is everywhere in Europe the green energy. You can imagine, somehow to deal with the only electric transportation. But the question is, how about other transportations, airplanes, marine business, So if fuel itself, even if not somehow promoted for automotive, it will have the future. So the question is, do we want to ignore it? And I personally don't have the feeling of the bad feeling when we talk with the responsible in the European institutions about bad feeling. I think that there is a huge interest. I think that there is more and more understanding of the challenge. I think that also, let me say, this frontier economics, the system related to, somehow the mechanism of how to link automotive industry with other industries, as for, let me say, this the CO2 trading. I didn't have any bad feeling about that. So maybe it's a little bit naive. We'll see it in the future, but I think that if there is something in the regulations, also those markets that announced ban of internal combustion engine can rethink a little bit the future, because there wouldn't be the rationale for that, in the future. Okay, so legitimate question, Gerhard. Thank you for that. But clearly, the regulations drive also the reality. That's true.
If I may add one thing,
Please.
The Commission has well recognized that for cars, the decarbonization has obviously multiple opportunities. One of them is the currently favorized electrification way. But it has also been recognized that there are other industries which are extremely difficult to decarbonize. For example, the aviation, maritime, and of course, also the long distance, high gravity transportation of goods. So for these areas, the Commission is really considering closely about e-fuels. And then the question arises for any person who is logically thinking, for what reason should there be a sectorial separation? If something is good for a truck or for an airplane, why shouldn't we use it for a car? And that is our pledge. Aside of the technology neutral, means we not only want a singular solution in terms of what is the powertrain, but we need also the understanding that there are several fuels that are possible. Some OEMs are also going the way with hydrogen and fuel cells. And we are going the way with e-fuels and advanced biofuels. Mazda in Japan is researching for the longer distance future, for example, also in algae fuels that we can make from these very small organisms which are living in salt water. So we need a very wide future, because we need such a huge amount of energy for all our living, for all our transport, for our homes, for our streets, which we have to light in the night. So we need all this energy in a renewable way. And that means we need to think about what is the best solution from an engineering point of view, and not from a dogmatic point of view.
I think this is important, what Christian is saying, and also, it's very easy always to talk about, like it happened also in the past, to do the big high-tech announcements, okay, that my next generation of cars will be clean, blah, blah, blah. It's true, but if we want to seriously protect our planet, there are millions of existing car parks. So our fundamental question is, do we want to ignore it? Or do we want to do something with the existing car park, okay, that has some tens of years of life, yeah? And I think that talking seriously about clean green fuels is also the solution that can address, at least partially, the challenge of how to make the currently existing internal combustion engines cars green in the next future. Internal combustion engines cars that also the competition, other OEMs that are doing big announcement, are launching today to the market. Yeah. So today, somebody that is announcing that will become very green in 2025, today is putting to the market internal combustion engines cars. Okay, so do you want to ignore it? We think, that at least it's worth serious reflection and fairness. Okay, if we want to talk seriously about protecting our planet and the new generations. We are very serious about it.
Thank you. We are now accelerating a bit, as we have only another 15 minutes. Now we go in Turkey for Okan Altan. Okan?
Hello, everyone. I am also totally agree with the e-fuels as an alternative for the electric vehicles, especially as you mentioned, with 1.4 billion motor vehicles in the world car park. It is maybe the only unique solution bringing these cars working with e-fuels. But my question is actually two parts of questions. Are you working, for example, today we received the announcement from Japan that next generation vehicle communication devices, you will work with Suzuki, Subaru, Daihatsu, and Toyota. Are you working also with the next green engines, also with your Japan partners, or let me say competitors? And my second question is very brief. is how Mazda Europe's plan is the avoid the carbon dioxide fines right now, because it's already it's beginning with the fines with the carbon dioxide levels of the brands on the average levels. So how you can give answer for this? Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you for the question. Yeah, it's a good point. Okay, we have released, you know, recently the press release about this cooperation. Yeah, so for the next, let me see, technology, we never exclude the partnerships, but we are developing our own multi-solution strategy that is mainly focused on our internal development and our engineers, and there will be always some exclusive elements for Mazda. And one of them, okay, that will come soon to the market is what I mentioned before. You know, is our, let me say, technology that will use also our good, well-known technology of rotary engine. We believe we can do something with this car, you know. But we'll have also, as I said, pure electric vehicles, mild hybrid, plugins, diesel, etc. So we are developing that. But you know, in the future, okay, any opportunity of the collaboration and further collaboration, okay, will be welcome. But there are no official, let me say, plans or confirmation we can give you today. Yeah? So this is the first part of the question. Second was
Is about avoiding the carbon dioxide fines in Europe.
okay.
How's your level?
As you know, we have not paid fines. Okay, we have created in 2018, 19, and 2020 the pooling agreements with our partner, with Toyota. We have successfully concluded this also for 2020, and from 2021, okay, we are exploring different options. Okay, so we are investigating where we are in terms of emission, but you know, we have good long-lasting partnerships. So if necessary, we'll definitely be talking also with about such solutions. But we are clearly proceeding the pathway, okay, to become also fine free, okay, in the next future with the technologies that I mentioned, okay, through also from Skyactiv X, you know,
yes,
through, let me say, MX-30, that is the battery electric vehicle that we have on the market. By the way, we sold 10,000 vehicles in 3 months effectively. Okay, it was quite successful model for us. So we are quite relaxed from this perspective, and it's clear that we have to go as every other OEM towards carbon neutrality or fine neutrality in the near future. But from 2018, 2019, 2020, we had a pooling agreement with Toyota that was very successful.
Great. We go now in Hungary. Gabor, please.
Hi, I'd like to ask you about the business side of e-fuels, and I'd like to be very brief. So is Mazda planning to take part in the distribution of e-fuels as well, and the production besides the research?
No, we are no fuel manufacturer for sure. We are promoting e-fuels to create the broader understanding that this is really a useful and sustainable solution to keep and maintain our mobility and convert it towards decarbonized mobility in the future. It is for us the understanding that it is currently the only technology that can decarbonize the existing car park, but it is also a very good solution for future vehicles. Imagine the situation that you are driving a plug-in vehicle and you are driving in the city of Budapest inside on electric power, electric battery, and then you want to visit a friend in Szeged, and outside of the city of Budapest, you switch to the combustion engine and it runs on e-fuels and still is CO2 neutral. I think this is a very smart approach and would give you the benefits of enjoy the silent and quiet and very smooth electric drive in the city and the powerful and responsive combustion engine drive outside of the city without having the impression that you are harming our climate.
Good. Now let's go in Ireland. Dave, it's your mic.
Hello, gentlemen. I appreciate all you're saying about e-fuels and reducing CO2, but the one thing I don't hear any car manufacturer really talk about is weight and vehicle weight and the impact that that can have on vehicle emissions. And Mazda has always been a champion of smaller, more lightweight cars. Where does vehicle weight fit into the future in terms of using that as a tool to help reduce emissions?
Yeah, of course, it's clearly understandable that vehicle weight has an impact on energy consumption. And this means, for example, if we have a very, very big electric battery in a car, which makes the car 200-300 kilos more heavy, then we have to accelerate this weight every time we move off from a traffic light and so forth. And this is also one of the reasons why Mazda has selected in our MX-30 a reasonable battery size, which is made under the considerations of the CO2 footprint of this vehicle and the use case we intend for this vehicle. So this currently excessive race towards bigger batteries is not very sensible, useful, because if you really assume that in future, wherever we are, at home, in the office, or in front of a shopping mall, there are opportunities to connect your car to whatever kind of charging device, means that the battery virtually can be charged in many places, and then there is no need to have these long electric ranges. And this also fits to our concept with the e-fuels. If we consider and if we believe in e-fuels and say this is a way to decarbonize the traffic, especially the long distance traffic, then we can say, okay, what is the best for this short distance mobility and what is the best for long distance mobility? And then we can adjust, for example, in vehicles which are used versatile between both, or especially just for the short distance travel, in a way that we say, okay, don't exaggerate the size of the battery, understand what the use is, and understand how the right sizing of the battery fits. And then you avoid a lot of energy loss.
Exactly. So maybe to sum up this chapter, Dan and everybody in the call about fuels, etc. You know, so this is. I hope that we were able to express with Christian why we joined also this e-fuel alliance. Okay, and we were the first OEM, quite unusual. But we just believe that this cross-sectorial view, when we talk about emissions, is a fundamental. It's very fair. So this alliance, e-fuel alliance, gives us access to the people or to the companies that are present in different parts of this value chain, and at the end, the consolidated outcome can be green. Okay, so this is why we are so keen, and we are quite promoting, and we are very positive about this kind of organization and association.
Now we go to Luxembourg to Bianca. Bianca, you have the mic.
Hello.
Hello.
How do you see the automotive industry changing in order to align to the European Green Deal until 2050?
Okay, so Christian, will you start from technology?
I could not fully get the question. How do you see the aligned industry in which respect?
No. How do we see automotive industry aligning into the Green Deal?
Okay. I think we have the different directions explained already, which are existing. I think what unifies the automotive industry is clear that we have to do something, and that these requirements, which we have to fulfill, really will also impact a lot of our investment capability, our engineering capability, and so forth. So as I said, and as Wojciech also explained, Mazda is not fighting or working against electrification. It is a core part of our strategy. And we are developing electrification means for all our engines in different degrees. So it means we have to apply and to modify our existing vehicle structures, architectures, the parts that we are using, and so forth. So I believe with the MX-30, which we launched in last September, we have given a very impressive understanding that we have a very clear view on the electric vehicle, in which way we can make it work in a way that it is a sustainable mobility product, but also in the way how we can enjoy driving, because this is one of the core essence of Mazda, that we want our people, the owners of our cars, that they enjoy mobility and that they make use of mobility because it belongs to our culture and our economy. And whenever people get in our cars, they should have a kind of feel of relief or joy, fun to drive, experience mobility. Yeah. So that gives us the unique opportunities.
Exactly, and thank you, Christian, and thank you, Ben, for this question, because it allows me maybe to a little bit put a little bit of personal opinion and emotions, because the Green Deal, it means kind of the eco, but at the center of any eco trends must be a human being, and human being is about let me say protecting lives, but also about enriching lives. And we just believe that car manufacturers, okay, OEM, that believes fundamentally that fun to drive should never die, and takes, let me say, the human being at the center of everything we do, I think can really offer something to enrich our lives and to generate the smiles in the face of the customers. And for me, the essence of the Green Deal, okay, is exactly that. Okay, let's make the people safe, happy, because the automobile, the transportation, as Christian mentioned at the beginning of our meeting, is essential part of our culture. Thanks of that we can safely drive from A to B, we can reach our friends, we can do our hobbies, we can express ourselves elsewhere. And independently if we are young and old, if we are healthy or less healthy, with the new technologies will open the door for the people to enjoy their lives. And this is a little bit mission that we are really feeling. And this will protect our earth, will offer, let me say, the good added value for society, and will be very much humanized and human-centered. That this is something, that we have also put in our Vision 2030. And you know what? We actually believe in that.
Okay, we are already time to finish, but please, last two questions, a few minutes more. First, we go in Sweden to Håkan. Håkan, you want to ask your question?
Yes, I'd like
Please.
to ask my question. I mean, I've been listening to what you've been saying here about the Green Deal and developing the technical features for adopting e-fuel in different kinds. I mean, in Sweden, we have had HVO 100 diesel, which is produced by local companies here in Sweden. And majority of the diesel, the new diesel vehicles that represented on the Swedish market today, can actually operate on the HVO 100. So that is nothing new, really. What I'm more concerned about when it comes to Mazda is that I'm going back to 2017 at the Frankfurt, the EIA in Frankfurt, where the buzzword was electrification. And the only manufacturer at that auto show that did not talk electrification, but we're talking about other solutions, that was Mazda. The result we've been seeing here in Sweden, for instance, is that Mazda has been dropping dramatically when it comes to sales figures. And the feeling is that you haven't been really adopting the changes that's been going on in the market in time for being able to compete on the market on the same level as other brands. I feel like in your case, this is my opinion, in your case, you should focus on electrification like all the other manufacturers are doing. not saying that you should not focus on being able to provide a technology for e-fuel, but focus on electrification, because we're seeing on the market, on the Swedish market today, a dramatic decline of diesel cells. We're seeing a dramatic decline of petrol cells. What people today are looking for is plug-in hybrids. They're looking for electrical vehicles, and this is the future for this market. We see the same thing in Norway, and therefore I feel like when you put in focus into the future developments, put the focus on electrification. Make sure that you have vehicles that can handle the demands of the consumers today, with a battery technology that will be able to provide a better mobility than you have today in the vehicles. I mean, MX-30 is a great example. I mean, it's a fantastic car, but the 200 kilometers or 210 kilometers is not enough. I mean, we're talking about the transition for consumers that's going over from a combustion engine vehicle to an electric vehicle. They want more mobility. They want a better mobility in the vehicles. If you're producing a plug-in hybrid, you should have at least 75 kilometers range on the vehicle. Otherwise, it will not be sufficient enough for the consumers to choose Mazda as the product.
Yeah. So let me answer also very clearly. Yeah? Because the subject was a little bit about Green Deal and also about this e-fuel and fuel alliance, because we have put it into the focus of this meeting. But we don't want to sound that we are not doing electrification. So let me restate: 100% of our vehicles in 2030 will be electrified. 100%. In Europe, will not have one car that will not be electrified. Okay, with a different technology of electrification. Okay, if we talk about BEVs, if we talk about hybrids, if we talk about plug-in hybrids, if we talk about what I mentioned, let me say, with this technology that we will call REV. Okay, so with the rotary engine, so we'll have 100% of those cars electrified. They will be competitive, because if not, we will disappear from the earth as a manufacturer. So absolutely, it's the case. We'll be electrified brand. But even if you have plug-in, there is also something that you have to put to the tank. Yeah. So the question is, are we going to continue with the fossil fuels? Yeah. So just to be very clear, yes, we'll be 100% electrified car manufacturers, but we just believe that also this multi-solution that we are talking about is equally valued as a concept. And just to tell you that in the first 3 months, despite we in Europe we have a -6% of the year-over-year performance, in Norway we have grown 88% year-over-year in the first quarter of the current year. In Italy, 48% up. In Austria, 42%. Yeah. Sorry.
You have grown from very low numbers. In this
yeah, I know, but this is something that is showing, okay, what we are doing, and we have all, of course, we have to look at the development of our commercial policy and our commercial strategies also from the pan-European and even global perspective. Okay, so there are never-ending challenges, clearly, but rest assured that also Nordic countries are in our focus, and we will have 100% of electrified fleet by 2030, definitely.
All right.
Okay, one last question. I will invite Rob van Ginegen to put. He has several, but I know he has several, but I will ask him to choose just one to end up this session. Rob?
Okay, thank you very much. What I would like to bring up is what maybe you can call the compact car dilemma. In essence, it's a solution to bring down the CO2 and other problems. but on so it's a cleaner solution. On the other hand, it seems that it's economically less viable because they seem to be disappearing. Do you think that e-fuels could change the playing field? Because I guess that e-fuels would be easier to get clean. So you would maybe need less technology to be able to produce these cars.
If I may start, Wojciech, please feel free to add something. We have many people here which are coming from countries where maybe the electrification, the renewable electrification, has progressed to a certain degree. Maybe Sweden is one of the forerunners in this, and that's why maybe you have a slightly different view. But we must understand that our focus is, with the Green Deal, to create a green society, a renewable society. And this means finally also make all energy green. As long as we are using the current energy mixes, unfortunately, our electrified cars are not fully CO2 neutral. And so in countries where we still have a way to go forward for the renewable electrification, e-fuels are especially a very good measure to improve the CO2 emission balance of these countries. And they require, as I said, less investment in infrastructure. So that means this is a solution which is not only good for the rich countries, it's also good for the countries who want to develop their wealth still. And I think this is something we should not forget. And the EU, I think, is now considering closer and closer that they have to explore legislation that can be really covered across whole Europe, because only if we stay as one team, we can win as one team.
Wojciech, you want to add something?
Thank you very much. I think it's a full picture that Christian gave. Thank you.
So, Oleg, sorry for you. We have no time for one more question. I want to say just few words from my side. I don't want to make any conclusion. We can easily see, and it was a pleasure to listen Wojciech and Christian in discovering the Mazda perspective of a multi-solution in the automotive industry. We talk about electrification, that is very clear, but we talk about other solutions regarding e-fuels, regarding biofuels, regarding hydrogen, and why not regarding a future for diesel. That's very important, ladies and gentlemen, on the Facebook Live to realize that, again, Mazda is surprising us with important news, a bit different than the rest, but it's very inclusive perspective, which means, as Wojciech mentioned, we can have a future for the internal combustion engine if, of course, in June and later on, the new regulations regarding the revision of the standards will be looking and applying this perspective Mazda is suggesting, and not only Mazda. So it was great talking to you all. Thank you very much for attending. And I hope everything will go on from now on with Mazda. And we will follow Wojciech and Christian. We will follow, as always, what is doing Mazda in Europe.
Please.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure and privilege. Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
indeed. Very nice.